copy down those equations onto the graph on the next page. So one of them was y equals -3, right? So copy down y equals -3. What was the second one? It was like -1/4 something?
Y equals -1/4 x
Plus 2?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one we had to like solve for it, but what did we end up with? Y equals, no, I'm sorry, the one before that. 2 before that, the first one.
That is 2x minus 3y equals 6.
Yeah, but we solved it, right?
Yes.
What did we get when we solved it?
We got
I think it was like
y equals 2/3 x
Minus 3?
2.
2. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to graph these guys. This may be a refresher. Those of you that had me last year, I know for a fact at one point you knew how to do this, okay? All right, so we're going to start by doing the last one, okay? I recommend that you use a different color, so underline it in blue or something, okay? We're going to use a different color for each of these so you can tell which one's which. Always start with your y-intercept. What is the y-intercept of this last equation? It's -2, okay? So we're going to start on my y-axis at what number? Put a dot. Put a dot. We're starting at -2. The other thing that we know from this equation is what? The 2/3, which is the slope. So if we're going to use 2/3, right, that means that my rise is and my run is, now they're both positive. That means up and right, correct? So go up 2 and then to the right 3, put a dot. And do it one more time. Up 2 to the right 3, put a dot. All of these points should lie on the same line. And draw the line that connects them. Questions on the first one? German, do you remember this? Cody? You remember this? Okay. All right. You guys, use a different color for the second one. -1/4 x plus 2. We start donde. Where do we start? 2. At the 2, okay? That is the y-intercept. So start at 2, put a dot. And how are we moving based on the slope? Alexis? What? Down 1, and then where? 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another point. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. And we've got a beautiful line. Yours should look a lot better than mine because you can draw straight lines in Notability. Questions on this guy? Zach, you good? Okay. No, but like it makes sense? Okay. Ava? All right. And lastly, the one that will confuse you guys until you're seniors in high school. When y equals a number, what kind of line do I get? Ronnie? Do you know the name for that? Horizontal. Very good. It's a horizontal line. And it's going to go through the point 0, -3. Yes?
what if it's like x equals?
If it's x equals, that's a very good question, Hayden. Who remembers what kind of line you get when it's x equals a number, Carson? A vertical one, okay? So y equals a number and x equals a number are your special scenarios. Those are when you get horizontal and vertical lines. What is the slope of a horizontal line? 0. What is the slope of a vertical line? Undefined. You need to know this for when? Wednesday. Okay? Wednesday. All right. How do we do on graphing? We're Gucci? Okay. Last piece, we're going to do 3 examples. The first 2 are pretty basic, but the last one, I'm not going to lie to you, it's kind of crazy. Okay? So make sure that you're paying close attention to these first 2 because it sets up for the last one. We are writing an equation of a line that passes through this point and is parallel to this line. Y equals 2x minus 3. Watch my steps. Step number 1. if we need to be parallel to this line, what do you know about the slopes? They're the same. So write the term or write the symbol for parallel and just write same slope. That means that our slope of our line needs to be the same as the slope of this guy. What is the slope of this equation? John?
2/1.
It's 2/1. So our slope needs to be 2/1 or just 2, okay? So our slope needs to be 2. Write that in there. Your first objective is to figure out, okay, what does the slope of our line needs to be, okay? And you know our slope needs to be 2. And in y equals mx plus b, what letter did we just find? M. So m is equal to 2. Whoops, I'm running with a highlighter. M is equal to 2. Step number 2 is write your equation with the slope in it. It was y equals 2x plus b. We do not know at this time the y-intercept of our equation. We know the y-intercept of this line, but all we needed for this line was we needed it to be parallel to this. Our y-intercept is not going to be -3 because it's a different line. Do you guys agree? They're two different lines. They should have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. But what else did we know about our line? It needed one other requirement. John?
You need to pass through that point.
Very good. It needs to pass through this point. Now, this point is a combination of two numbers, which represent what in our equation?
Your y-intercept.
No, this is not a y-intercept.
Oh no, like it has to pass through the 1.
It has to pass through -1, comma 1. But what can we do with this point to help us solve this equation? Kristen?
Do y equals 2, parentheses -1.
Ooh, what are you plugging in right now?
The x.
Very good. Grab this guy, bring him down here. So you guys agree, in this coordinate, my x value is what? -1. And my y value is? 1. Plug those points in. Make x equal to -1 and make y equal to 1. You're going to use that point to figure out what your b value needs to be. So plug them in. So y is now going to be 1 and x is going to be -1. So we have 1 equals 2 times -1, which gives me? -2 plus b. How do I solve for b? You add what? 2 to both sides. What's 1 plus 2?
3.
So 3 equals b. This is also not my answer. Because what was this question asking me for? An equation of the line. So what do I have to do for my final answer? This is the third step, guys. What do I have to do for my final answer? Sophia?
Y equals 2x plus 3.
There we go. Y equals 2x plus 3. That's it. Now, double check yourself. It needed to be parallel or perpendicular? It needed to be parallel, right? Is this equation parallel to this one? How do you know? They have the same slope. Are they the same line? No. Why are they not the same line? John?
One's on the positive, one's on the negative.
Good.
Interruption. Peter Minio reports to student services. Peter Minio reports to student services.
One has a negative y-intercept and one has a positive y-intercept, right? Now, that makes sense, right? Because parallel lines should not be the same line. Do you guys agree? They should be facing the same direction, but they should be off by a little bit, right? So these lines, technically, right, if we were to graph them, one would be looking like this, going through a +3, and one would be going like this, going through a -3. They have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. Do you guys agree with that? We Gucci? Okay. The next question is the exact same thing, except it's asking us to find where it's perpendicular, okay? So we need to find a perpendicular line to the one that we're given. We're going to start with the same 3 steps. Step number 1 is figure out, okay, if it needs to be perpendicular to this equation, what does my slope have to be? Now, from this equation, we really don't know what the slope is. Why not? It's not in what?
It has to be different.
What do you mean it has to be different?
I don't know how to explain it, but like it's supposed to be flipped in a negative, so.
Yes, opposite reciprocal. But John, from this equation, do you know what the slope of that line is?
Yeah, it's 2x.
No.
Negative 2x.
German?
1/2. I mean, -2, sorry.
Okay, but why?
Because you have to subtract 2x to make it into slope-intercept form.
Good. Guys, this is not in slope-intercept form. That's what I was trying to get at. Do you guys agree this is not in slope-intercept form? So we have to do something to make it in slope-intercept form. German's saying subtract 2x, correct? So subtract 2x, you're going to get y equals what?
Negative 2x plus 2.
Negative 2x plus 2. Is this in slope-intercept form? And now we... Yes. Benji. You're good? Okay. What's my slope of this one, Benji?
2.
Nope.
-2.
Negative 2, okay? If my slope of this line is negative 2, but my line needs to be perpendicular to it, what is the slope of our line going to be? Not 2. 1/2. Change the sign and flip it. Change the sign and flip it. Opposite, reciprocal. Negative, reciprocal. However way you need to remember it, you have to remember this for tomorrow, for Wednesday, okay? So our slope is 1/2. That means I can write the equation y equals mx plus b, and I can substitute what? 1/2 for m. Y equals 1/2 x plus b. Who remembers what I did in the last problem that I can do here? Sophia? Plug in what?
2 and -3.
Good. 2 and 3. Use this point to your advantage. It needs to go through that point. So we're going to plug in y. We're going to plug in x. Y is going to be replaced with 3. And x is going to be replaced with? So we have 1/2 times 2 plus b. What is 1/2 of 2? Oh boy. What is 1/2 of 2? It's not 2. It's 1. It's going to be 3 equals... Now, remember, okay, did that confuse you guys when I said 1/2 of 2? Think of this as 2 over what? 1. If you were to multiply straight across, you'd get 2 over 2, right?
Yeah.
2 divided by 2 is just 1. So 1 plus b. What do I do to solve for b? Subtract 1, and we get 2 equals b. Am I done? No. What is the last step here, guys?
You gotta plug this stuff in.
So y equals 1/2 x plus 2.
That would be the final answer.
This is the final answer because it's asking for the equation of a line. You guys agree this is now an equation of a line?
Yeah.
It's 1/2 x plus 2. Go back and check it. Should it have the same slope of your original expression? Why not?
Because it's perpendicular.
They're perpendicular. Very good. Should it have the opposite reciprocal? Does ours have the opposite reciprocal? Excellent. Okay. This is the same between the two equations. Cody, what'd you say? The y-intercepts. Guys, that is just a coincidence. Your equations do not need to have the same y-intercepts. That is just a coincidence. We Gucci? You could have plus 18 as the y-intercept and it'll still be perpendicular as long as those slopes are opposite reciprocals. All right, guys, I'm not going to lie. This next one's going to take me about 15 minutes to do. It's a very long question, okay? But we're going to walk through the whole thing, okay? I want you guys to find the distance from the point 1, 0 to the line y equals negative x plus 3. Let's draw a little diagram for ourselves so we can figure out what we're doing. So go over to the left, guys, somewhere and draw a little coordinate plane just so we can get an idea. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is our y-axis. This is our x. Do you guys agree that negative x plus 3 is going to start at 3 and it's going to go down 1 to the right 1? So it's going to have a kind of like a line like this. Are you guys cool with that? Now, the point 1 comma 0, right? That's going to be this point on the x-axis, right around here. It does not have to be perfect, okay? It's a rough sketch. You're not using this other than as a visual. So what we're doing here on this problem is we're finding the distance from this point to this line. Does anyone remember how to find the distance from a point to a line? What's the most important part? Hayden?
The letter of it, and then like in the division part, and then it's the distance formula.
Eventually we're going to need the distance formula.
And then it's x2 minus x1.
Ah, that's slope. That's slope. Cody?
It's like a straight line, right?
Ah, did you hear Cody? You need to make it a straight line to the other one. More specifically, guys, though, remember, what's the distance from a point to a line? Sophia? No, it does not have to be an acute angle. What? Not parallel. It has to be a right angle. In other words, it has to be perpendicular. So we're trying to find a segment, right, that'll create what kind of angle here? A 90-degree angle. So check this out. Our given equation was negative x plus 3. Do you guys agree? What's the slope there? So our slope is negative 1 over 1, right? Or just negative 1. The slope of our perpendicular line needs to be what? 1. So check this out. We're going to write y equals 1x plus b. Because we need our slopes to be perpendicular to each other. Are we Gucci with this part? This segment, right? This line. What is one of the points that I know that this line is going to go through? What middle? What is one point that I know this red line has to go through? What? 1 comma 0. Do you guys agree this line has to go through this point? And this point was 1 comma 0? So we're going to use this point in our equation and figure out the equation of the line, okay? So for y, we're going to plug in 0. And for x, we're going to plug in 1. So it's going to be 0 equals 1 times 1 plus b. 1 times 1 is? So we have 1 plus b. What do I do? Subtract 1 from both sides. So b is actually equal to negative 1. Or negative 1 equals b. Plug it back in. My equation of this red line is y equals 1x, or just x, minus 1. Okay, how we doing? Have I lost anyone? Are you guys with me so far? Yeah. So all I found is the equation of a line that is perpendicular to that line in the black, right? Okay. In your diagram, just make sure that you recognize that this is a line, right? It's not a segment. We were asked to find the distance from this point to this line. We were asked to find the distance from this point to this line. We know one of the points, but we don't know this point. Do you guys agree? We can't guess it. It has to be exact. Does anyone think they have an idea of how we could figure out this point right here? Cody?
Would that be the midpoint of the 2 points?
It would not be the midpoint. Because remember, these lines extend forever. But I like where your head's at. What else do you think we could do? Angle addition postulate? Angles don't really help us when we're in the coordinate plane, but I like that you're trying that. Did you guys hear what Carson just said?
No.
The distance formula. We will eventually have to use the distance formula, but to use the distance formula, how many points do you need? 2. How many points do we have? We only know 1, 0. We're trying to figure out this point. Nobody can figure it out?
Wait, I have a question. Don't we have
Someone in my last class got it. Yeah. John? What?
3?
No.
Oh. Okay, then what's the 3 for?
Where's the 3?
There's a 3 right there.
Oh, that's the y-intercept. It's 0, 3. Okay, listen carefully. To figure out where these two lines intersect, you set them equal to each other. Okay? Do you guys remember when we had systems of equations in algebra? And you would use a method called substitution? And you would get this equals this, and then you would solve for one of your variables? Check this out. Both of these equations, this first one for our first line and this second line, are both set equal to what? Y. So substitute them for each other. We're going to write negative x plus 3, which is the first one, equals what? X minus 1. And then solve. How do I solve this? What? Add 1? Sure. Add 1 to both sides. I'm going to get negative x plus 4 equals x. What do I do after that? Add x. You're going to get 4 equals 2x. Then what? Divide by 2. So x is equal to? So x is equal to 2. That means that the x component of this point is 2. How could I figure out the y component? Plug it in. To which one, Sophia?
Y equals x minus
X minus 1? Could I plug it into the other one? Remember, don't those lines intersect at that point? So does it matter which one I plug it into? No, we're going to get the same answer. So Sophia's right. We can plug it into either one. So let's plug it into the one that we solved for, x minus 1. So we get y equals, instead of x, I plug in 2. So I'm going to get 2 minus 1. And I'm going to get y equals 1. So my coordinate, that point is what? 2, 1. So now I have 2 points. I have a point 1, 0, and I have a point 2, 1. Now I use what Carson said. Carson said we need to use the distance formula to find the distance between these 2 points. So I'm going to use the distance formula, and I'm going to make this my x1 and my y1, and this will be my x2 and my y2. So the distance formula says you do the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So your distance is going to be the square root of 2 minus 1, which is 1 squared, plus 1 squared. 1 squared is 1. Adding 1 squared, you get the square root of 2. And you leave it like that as a simplified radical. Fun, right? Of course. Okay. Sophia has asked me to number my steps. I'm going to actually walk us through it again. Did we all copy this down? Okay. Hey, people, put your iPads down. I only want you listening to my voice. iPads face down. John, face down. Ronnie, face down. Okay. So we started with a line and a point. Do you guys agree? From that line and that point, we said, okay, it needs to be perpendicular. So we went over here, we were like, okay, what's perpendicular to a slope of -1? Sophia, you're listening to me, right? And what's perpendicular to a slope of -1 is +1. So we used that one and we used the point, which was 1, 0. And we went, okay, our third step is going to be plugging in that point and with the slope, and we're going to get our b value. So now we were like, okay, we got a line of a perpendicular line to our original line that's going through the point off the line, okay? Because it needs to be perpendicular to create the shortest distance from that point to the line. You guys with me? Okay. From there, we were like, okay, but we still don't know what this point is. How we found this point was we were like, okay, we can set each of these equations equal to each other to find out where the lines intersect, right? And once we set them equal to each other, we found an x value of 2. You can't just have an x value. You have to have a coordinate, an x and a y. So we used the x value, you plugged it back in, and you got 2, 1 was our point. So we know where the two lines are crossing is at 2, 1. Now we have 2 points, and we're just asked to find the distance between them. And you just needed to use the distance formula. So this would be 4, and then 5 is where we jumped over to the distance formula. Okay? So I numbered it all out. Sophia, now you can flip over your iPad and copy it all down. The 5 different steps. But this is, you guys need to get comfortable with this. I believe there's 1 or 2 of these on your homework to use as study material. But this will, you can guarantee it'll show up on Wednesday.